Hi there. Hi there. I feel like the expected thing now is going to be what mistake did I make already? But this is what happens. This is what we own and we go forward with things. Um, my name is not showing up. There we go. Show display names. So hi, I'm Trish Broderick. I'm with Ignite Insight and Innovation, and it's the first Friday of August. And I am going live today about listening. But I am only going live right now on YouTube because I accidentally set this to 12:15 a.m. and not 12:15 p.m. So I'll get it up onto Facebook. I'll get it onto LinkedIn Live because I don't have live. I'll get it onto LinkedIn, the recording later, and on my blog post as well. But we're still going to go live on YouTube. I was able to adjust that. So YouTube for the win. And we'll go forward with today. So today's topic is listening. And we all like to think that we're great listeners. I mean, there's a few of us that will be really honest, be like, I'm not a good listener. But most people are like, oh, that's one of my strengths. I'm a good listener. And I really had to come to terms that there are moments I'm a great listener, and then there are a lot of times I'm not. But they're not always about like malicious, evil, mean, don't care kinds of things. And I think we get into this binary. If you're a good listener, you care about people. If you're a bad listener, you don't. And that wasn't true for me. And I think that's why I fought improving this skill so much, because that would mean that I was a bad person or I didn't care about people. But that's just not reality, as with everything as humans and things that we learn. So today I'm going to kind of share some of the listening blocks, hurdles, issues, challenges that I've had, with the hopes that maybe you've experienced them, or they give you some ideas of things that you can work on within your workplace or even at home as well too. So my first one is, and people who follow my blog probably will know about this one. I call myself an accidental interrupter. I know it's a nice way, but it's how my brain likes to process it. So when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I interrupt. I'm horrible about it. But I'm not interrupting because I'm trying to be rude or I don't care what you say. Actually, what happens for me is you say something and it triggers an idea in my brain, and the triggering point to the flying out of my mouth point, there's very little small window. It's a very, very small window there. And because I get so excited about the idea, I get excited about the thought that was just triggered by something you were saying. And so in a jacked up way in my brain, it's like a compliment, which I know it's not. I understand it's not. But in my head, like, that's really what's happening for me. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful for this experience, for us to interact, and for me to have this thought that's building off the thought you had. For me, in a lot of ways, that's collaboration, but it's not always healthy. And so that's why I like to say it's an accidental interrupter, because I'm not trying to interrupt. I am. But that's not really the motivation. It's not really the goal. The goal is trying to just process the information that's coming to my head while you're sharing. In fact, I have a couple of colleagues that will do stuff like, I'm going to keep talking until I see you have that light bulb. And I'm like, yes, that's how I work as an extrovert, or in my own brain's processing. That's just what works best for me. So one of the tricks that I do to deal with this, because it is so frequent and it is a lot, is one, I acknowledge if I do it. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I just got excited. and I try and call that out. Two is I usually always have, and that my green screen is showing up for the yellow, but it's the yellow on the blue and I can't make it not do it. But I usually have paper or Post-its or something right nearby. And what I'm doing there is I'll make a little note. And what I'm able to do is, even if I write down one word and try and get back to listening as fast as possible, just writing down that one word makes it so that I don't feel like I'm going to forget it. I don't feel like it needs to fly out of my mouth. And writing that one word down allows me to come back to it when there is a break in the naturally, or when it makes more sense for me to share or provide that. And so I almost always have something nearby me for that reason. It's really, really helpful. And one of the ways that I avoid it flying out of my mouth. The second one is just understanding and learning more about the ways that we stop really listening. There's a book called Messages by, and I want to get the names correct, McKay, Davis, and Fanning. And part of that book was a section on like listening blocks. And there's lots of them out there. And it was fascinating to me to realize how easy it is to go up in your own head and still narrate and tell yourself that you're listening. So let me give an example. Well, before I give that example, let me give you like most people, when they think of not listening or a listening block, is they're just placating. Like, yeah, I'm listening. And they're not listening at all. Right? Like they're totally doing something else. They're just placating. That's what most people think of in terms of not listening. But there's actually other blocks. And one of them is one of the ones that I do the most is called advising. I'm very guilty of this. So you'll be talking, you're sharing maybe some problem you're having, a challenge you have, and naturally, inevitably, my mind will start racing with, what would I advise? What would I suggest? What could I recommend? How can I help? And it's not happening because I want to send it around me. It's not happening because I feel like I even should fix everything. I just want to help people. And so in my brain, that's where I go. The problem is the minute you're up here thinking about how you would advise or give a solution, you're not really listening. You're not hearing everything that other person's saying. You're not seeing beyond just the words and noticing more of global things that are going on, tone, language, facial expression, whatever it might be. And so you're missing communication. You're not fully present and listening because you're up here deciding what you're going to respond with. And once we kind of have that, even if it's with a good time, well, I have to listen so I can advise you. But the minute we have that, the minute we're going down that path, the challenge then starts to become, we're not really just listening. You can still advise afterwards. All those same thoughts will come up when they finish talking. But let them finish. Let them really hear them out. Let them explore where they want to take their message before you're immediately trying to go into that advising, because sometimes they don't even want you to advise. And I'm realizing even my glasses are having like we're going to take those off today, because even my glasses are having a green screen thing today. I don't know. Okay, so that's one. Another one that's really, really common that I do often, and this one's a little more self-serving. And so, you know what? I'm just going to own it. I'm going to put it out there and acknowledge it. It's called identifying. And so that's as the other person is talking and sharing their item, you identify within the story. Maybe you remember something that happened to you. Maybe you can feel the empathy or feel the reaction because you know what that person's experiencing. You know what they're having. The hard part is I can get lost in that identifying. And then suddenly now I am centering it on me. I am in my space. I may even have lost complete ability to listen a little bit and have started going into remembering things or reliving things. And that can easily go in and even to another one of the blocks called comparing, where you're like, well, what did I do versus what did they do? What would be different? And so that can take you down a really bad rabbit hole when it comes to listening. You can get easily into other blocks. I can be daydreaming, off in a different world. I can be dreaming. And so for me, the identifying block really takes me down a path that gets me away from just being present and listening to somebody else with pure curiosity, with pure interest, and just understanding where they're going with it. It doesn't have to reply to me. It doesn't have to relate to me. It doesn't have to be about me. And I know that sounds super narcissistic even to say that, but we are human. Like if someone shares a story about a challenge they've had as a woman in tech, it's hard for me not to identify in it. It's hard for me to not think about the situations that I've experienced and go there. But that's not what my role right in that moment is trying to be about. There'll be space for that later and what I want to do with it. But in that moment, I really want to just be present and really listen and give somebody else that space to share what they need to share, to explore and to unlock. And a lot of times people need great listeners to do that. So my tip for that is really to remember what my goal is to give that space, is to remember that the very thing I said earlier is like, ooh, when you say something, it unlocks something for me. Well, it actually, when we say stuff, it unlocks things for us as well. And so a lot of times I need to honor that someone's trusting me to share something that I do identify with. But they're trusting to share it with me, not for me, for them. And so am I giving them the space? Am I honoring that trust that they're putting in to me to share that? I will own I'm not always great about it. I was just at a happy hour dinner with somebody and somebody made a comment and I went, oh, and I realized, oh, I can relate to that. And she immediately hijacked it. I was like, oh, what am I doing? That's not good listening. And in some cases it's fine when it's with your buddies and you're just out or you're having a little tequila. It's okay. But when I'm, especially as a leader, or if I really want to be a good friend, family member, mom, am I giving that space? Am I really honoring the trust they've put in me to share something that I might identify with, but to not make it about me? Not always easy, but the world needs more of us doing that, especially as allies. So these are just a couple of things that I've had to register. There's plenty more with listening and being better at it and developing that skill. It's not a binary, you're a good or bad listener. It's not something of you're a bad listener, you're a bad person that doesn't care about people. You're human. But the more that we start to actively recognize where we struggle, where we are challenged, the more that we can actually be better listeners. So, I don't have a lot of public things coming up. I do have one more LAT, Leading Amazing Teams, that I do with my colleague Jake Calabrese in September. There's only a couple spots left in that, but I'll put the offering link up onto this live afterwards, and so you can see what's available from there. And the rest of the stuff isn't until a little bit later. I just don't have many publics right nearby, and the ACSM for next week is full. So sorry I don't have more to offer you in that space, but if you need anything, just holler. In the meantime, enjoy and hope you all have a wonderful August.